So, welcome, Ruben from Bittr, founder of Bittr. How are you today?
Good, good. How are you?
Excellent. Let's talk about Bittr and the way to buy Bitcoin for beginners. If you're a beginner, you can go buy Bitcoin on an online exchange. That's kind of like, I think, the most common way, Coinbase, Kraken, you sign up. Or you go like to a Bitcoin ATM in your neighborhood, or you meet someone. And also, of course, a good way to buy Bitcoin is if you get paid in Bitcoin. What's the specialty of Bittr?
So, a couple of years ago, I was just frustrated myself with the fact that there was not a single place where I could buy Bitcoin on a recurring basis. So, like dollar cost averaging, which I think is the best way to get into Bitcoin, and actually receive that Bitcoin into my own wallet. Like, the only platform I knew of was Coinbase. And, well, first of all, I don't like Coinbase. And secondly, the Bitcoin is gonna, like it's gonna stay there unless you withdraw it, which, I mean, I'm too lazy to do that every week. So yeah, I figured I should go build it myself. So the specialty about Bitter is really to buy on a recurring basis with a simple bank transfer.
Trace Mayer calls it flexing monetary sovereignty muscles. So you mentioned basically two things, and what I picked is one is dollar cost averaging, and one is that you don't have to withdraw the Bitcoin from an exchange, right? Let's talk about them separately, but for people who are very early on, don't know about all the technical terms, what is dollar cost averaging in simple terms?
In simple terms, it means that you're going to invest into an asset. I mean, in Bitter's case, it's Bitcoin, but it could be any assets like the S&P 500 or gold. And you don't really look at the exchange rate, but you just commit yourself to buying 25 euros worth of it every week or every month. And in that way, slowly but surely invest into that asset.
And why should I do that on a regular basis instead of trying to get a low entry point, or just buy a single time?
So Bitcoin is very volatile. Like the exchange rate goes up and down like crazy. And in order to kind of mitigate this volatility, it's just much better to buy these small amounts on a weekly basis because then sometimes you might buy high, but you also automatically buy the dips when it does go down. So you kind of balance out the highs and the lows.
And that's better than compared to a single purchase on once per year or something like that.
I mean, it depends because there's obviously you have a good chance that if you buy Bitcoin today, it's like I think the lowest today was 6,000 euros. That may be, I don't know, a very good entry point. But who knows? Maybe Bitcoin in the first half of 2020, it goes down like crazy because everyone expects it to go up. I don't know. You can just simply not forecast the Bitcoin price, and surely, like if you're lucky, you can get in at a better price. But if you don't want to take that risk because you're really just gambling in that case, and you want to spread out your risk, then dollar cost averaging is the way to go.
And that means that as you mentioned in the beginning, like committing yourself to an asset. So the way the idea behind is that I say, okay, like I put on a regular basis a small portion into this for a long-term relationship, right?
Yeah. And I think personally that the best way to look at it is to take a portion of your income. So let's say maybe 5% of your income, you get your salary paid on the 24th of the month. You just tell your bank, okay, on the 25th, send 5% of whatever my salary is, send it over to Bitter, buy Bitcoin with it. Because it's like sometimes people ask me like, yeah, what's a good amount to get started with? And I'm like, that's a strange question. Like it's completely dependent on your financial situation. I cannot look into your wallet. So if you take a percentage of your income, it's different for everyone, but it should be a good strategy in the long run.
There's this website dcabtc.com, dollar cost averaging btc.com, I think, and it's really fascinating to look I mean, of course, it's past performance basically, right? But it's crazy to look at this. What would happen if you had started a saving in Bitcoin, like a couple of years ago on a regular basis, and you can change the amounts, and you suddenly would sit on millions of dollars.
Yeah, I also built one of those calculators on the Bittr website, but the guy who built DCABTC.com, like he done a fantastic job. Like his looks much, much, much better. But I also did want to communicate that value proposition on my website because it's so powerful. Like you can tell people like, yeah, you should dollar cost average Bitcoin. But if you actually show them results, it's like, yeah, I really should have.
Mm.
And it's like the other thing with dollar cost averaging, like it's never too late. Like somewhere earlier this year, Bitcoin was like, I don't know, 8,500 euros per coin. Now it's all the way back to 6. So all those people that started dollar cost averaging at 8.5K, they're still doing fine now.
Yeah. What is I think what people have to bring though is kind of the patience, right? So you cannot say like many for example people that are a little bit in business or that are interested in investment somehow. They sometimes want like really fast results, right? What kind of patience do you suggest to have for that thing, and like who is the right one to do it, and maybe who should better stay away in general?
I think the right time horizon is like 5 years for Bitcoin. However, if you look at the calculator now on the Bittr website, it automatically calculates what your results would have been if you started with 50 euros a week from a year ago, and you would have already doubled your money. Like even for like proper investors, that's crazy returns, and that's just in the time span of 1 year. So, but this is like I guess you could say it's been a good year for Bitcoin. I think any investment into Bitcoin should really be like 5 to 10 years out, and then look at the returns.
Yep. Yeah, I think the interesting part is also that, like, of course, there can be really bad years, and definitely the dollar cost averaging mitigates your exposure and your risk, your downside risk, right? Because if you buy in the peak, and that's what most people do, they're just really emotion driven, and then you do mistakes because you have fear of missing out, which is not really a rational decision anymore, and then you overinvest, and also you have the wrong timing, and then you're like really hurt when it goes bad. So I'd like to know from you what you expect on the even longer term, because I think you still need to believe in Bitcoin, right? You still need to say, okay, like if I do dollar cost averaging in Bitcoin, I cannot assume that it will go to zero, right? I must assume that over the long term it will go up. So why do you think Bitcoin could go up on the long term?
Simply because Bitcoin is better money than any fiat money that we have today. Like, its supply. So the more Satoshis you're stacking every week, that means the less there will be available for people in the future. So I cannot imagine that it would not go up in the long run. Simply because fiat currencies are so bad.
Okay. Why are they so bad in your eyes? I mean, at least it's accepted everywhere. I can pay with it, and like the central bank's doing a good job, for price stability. So what's the real problem?
I mean, are they doing a good job? They have no idea what they're doing. They're like, I just saw this article the other day where um, uh, American companies can issue bonds of themselves. These bonds will then be bought by the European Central Bank because they're like, yeah, we need to provide the market with liquidity, so we just buy bonds ourselves. Like that's crazy. Like a central bank shouldn't be doing that in the first place. But then these American companies are like, oh no, okay, great. Now we've got money. What do we need to do with this money? Oh, let's buy back our own shares. So meanwhile, the S&P 500 goes up in the US because they got free money from the European Central Bank. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like they have no idea what they're doing. And because of all this, the euros that I do have in my savings account become worth less because the European Central Bank just printed more for these American companies. So euros are just a terrible store of value, and I think in the long run, Bitcoin is much better store of value.
So historically, when the flip is happening and people lose the trust in an artificial currency, such as like fiat paper currency, right? It's always kept alive. It has to be supported, and once it doesn't work anymore, then it really can also collapse really rapidly. What do you expect to happen, like on the way to hyper Bitcoinization? Do you think it's going to be a smooth transition, or there will be like a pretty rough landing?
It actually might be one of those cases of like gradually then suddenly. So like slowly more and more people are like, oh, actually I trust Bitcoin more than my central bank. But like as with any case that we've historically seen of hyperinflation, those things don't end well. And while I don't hope that that's going to happen anytime soon, I think that first some like maybe less stable currencies will get that scenario. So like places like maybe Argentina, Lebanon, where things are a bit like unsteady anyways. And that might like in the long run spill over to other nations, including Europe.
Cool. So let's touch a bit on the private key management. Your service is really dedicated towards controlling your private key yourself instead of any custodial service. Does that also kind of free you from certain regulatory obligations?
No, it's more of a personal belief. Like, I think we're doing this whole Bitcoin thing to get rid of banks, basically. Like, we can now be our own banks, be self-sovereign, and that's what the whole currency is about. And then to create institutions like Coinbase, which basically have become big Bitcoin banks, that it just doesn't resonate well with me. So that's why I wanted to make this Bittr service non-custodial, kind of force people, I guess, to make a wallet before they can even sign up with us. But then at least they buy Bitcoin the right way. From a regulatory perspective, it's not much different. Like we all fall into the same bucket, let's say. Like either if you provide custodial services or if you provide fiat to crypto services, you will be regulated. On the other hand, I have to say that it does give me peace of mind that whatever we do, we cannot lose customer funds. Like it actually feels really good.
Yeah, you don't have responsibility for that. Yeah, and like we've seen so many cases. So probably you like when the Trace Meyer awareness campaign to withdraw your private keys or your funds from exchanges on January 3rd, right? That doesn't really touch you because like you don't have any anyways.
I will probably tweet something like that again because I don't know. At some point, Kraken was like kind of proud to tweet like, "Oh, we delisted BSV or something," and I responded like, "Yeah, there's no need to delist BSV on Bittr because we never list any shitcoins in the first place." And we will probably do a tweet like this now with proof of keys on January 3rd. Very important campaign.
Talking about Kraken, so the big business models in the Bitcoin or the crypto or the blockchain space even like have been big exchanges, right? Like Binance. Those are the big money machines, whether they're ethical, legit, or semi serious. Do you expect exchange to have a long-term stand, or do you think actually like what really people only want is to onboard, basically to convert fiat into crypto and then fuck off? And also like at some point, the altcoin trading is not really a thing anymore, right? So because there might not be another bull run and then it's really pointless. So do you think that basically like all these exchanges, all this investment that has gone into it, and like, I mean, they're really solid businesses now, right? Like they can't be, they're sort of Lindy, but I mean, with Bitcoin advancing, what many people expect is that basically this over right now, right, the whole world economy, like companies, they invest in financial tools and products rather than a machinery and real value. So like that's why everybody becomes a wealth manager, fund manager, like goes in finance, and it's also artificially enhanced. So do you think like all these Bitcoin exchanges would become smaller again once Bitcoin is there, or do you think like like they will survive and like they will always be like altcoin trading and stuff like that?
I think that the on-ramp that they're providing will always be like something we need until hyper-Bitcoinization, where everyone just thinks and only works in Bitcoin. As for the altcoins, I think it might actually backfire to them, because in a couple of years we will see that there's like practically no activity in altcoins anymore, probably, and that's gonna have like a negative impact on a lot of people's trading portfolios. So they might have like, I don't know, bad feelings towards like a shitcoin casino like Binance. And so it might actually hurt their reputation in the long run for supporting all these altcoins today. Whereas probably the Bitcoin only businesses that exist today, they will have the reputation in a few years like, oh yeah, they never bothered with the altcoins, like those are the people we can trust.
Awesome, yeah. Okay, last question. Where do you see Bitcoin, besides the price, of course? Like, what kind of developments do you expect to happen in 2020? What other maybe improvements, or what services are you excited about? What's your personal agenda for Bittr?
Yeah.
How is the next year looking for you?
I think in 2020 we should see Lightning Network become a lot more mature. We've already done with Bittr like um, a setup where, like, instead of the satoshis being sent to our customers on chain, we could actually do that off chain. We were using some unstable version of LND and some features that are not in the real LND, which is it used to be called Sphinx, now it's called KeySend. So that's what we're really excited for, because once that's integrated into the real LND branch, the master branch, we could actually start supporting Lightning transactions probably like a week afterwards, because we've already have the setup. So yeah, that's what we're most excited about.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot. And yeah, talk next year again, probably.
Cool. Thanks for having me.